why would you test your hormones? Well, the way I look at how people function is I want to identify what people's stressors are, what their external and what their internal stressors are. And every time you have a stress response, there's a following hormonal response. And if you know the hormonal response, or the degree to which your hormones respond to stress, you can then start making interpretations on how you function. So using the hormones is kind of like a window into how the rest of your body functions. So getting your hormones in place and understanding the balance of them, the rhythm across the day of what hormones are up and what are down, then gives you the information to see how your digestive system's working, how your immune system's working, and how your liver and detoxification system's working. Because their capacity to adapt to your stressors, your life, the foods you eat and the air you breathe and the exercise you do or don't do, and all those sort of obvious stressors are based on your hormonal response. And then the digestive system functions, and then the immune system and your liver come in behind that. So if you know that you have a good, strong hormonal response, it's likely that your digestive system and immune system and detoxification will all work well together. Now, most people come to see us for hormone testing or for lab testing because they're under stress and certain functions in their body are not working. And that's normally hormonal, digestive, immune, or detoxification is how you could classify those symptoms. So when I look at hormones first, we can find out what all the stresses are. And that starts off by looking at the external stressors. So you've got the financial, there's personal, there's family, there's issues of love, all that kind of stuff that people tend to talk about, how stressed they are. They don't always talk about, well, I've got bloating every time I have a Chinese on a Friday night. In fact, you know what, I only have 3 bottles of beer now and I feel hellish, my hangovers are lasting a lot longer, I know I can't drink as much. Or I used to work all afternoon without really having a break. I could get away with hardly having any lunch, but I'm dead on my feet by the end of the day and I can't help but have cake, alcohol or whatever at the end of the day to cope with that. That's a sign that your blood sugar levels are no longer stable, and that would tell me that you are stressed, and some of those stresses are internal. So although you may choose not to eat all day long, that would be like a lifestyle choice, there'll be things that are going on internally, like every time you've got a gap in blood sugar, up should come your stress hormones to give your body more sugar to keep fighting with life and to have the energy to survive or cope with different means. But when you've also got you're also consuming the wrong foods that could be causing stress in your gut, or you spend a lot of time travelling and you're in different environments where there's air pollution, or you do a lot of driving, which means you're sitting on motorways where again you've got air pollution as an issue. Maybe you smoke, drink, you quite like putting on makeup, and there's lots of hairspray and different perfumes, chemicals coming in. There's a whole series of other stuff that comes in to impact on your body and how it functions that also can impact your digestion. So the stressors that goes on in your digestive system forces your body to release a hormonal response. So your hormones respond to stress, whatever the nature of whatever those stressors are. Your digestive system in itself will create a stress response, possibly let's say eating the wrong foods, but you're gluten intolerant, there's too much gluten in it, so going out for pasta or eating pasta at home would be a bad idea. That creates stress. So that sucks up another wee stress hormone. So your body has to secrete a wee bit more hormone to cope with that wrong food. Or the air you breathe creating a stressor. Or there's lots of people in your office have the cold. And at some point, depending on how strong and healthy you are, you may also get a cold. So that's another stressor. So there's lots of wee things that keep eating away at your ability to cope with stress, which keeps using up hormones. So if we get the big picture of how your hormones are coping, we can then figure out where the support needs to come to build those hormones back up, where the repair needs to come to allow the body to get itself back on track and create an appropriate stress response to whatever the stressor happens to be. So, for example, if I was to shout at you right now and you perceive that to be pretty stressful, then you should secrete this amount of hormone to match that, to allow your body to cope, not this amount. Or if it only needs this amount and your body decides to secrete, wow, that amount of the stress hormone, then that's an over response, and that again is going to eat into your reserves. So what I'm coming to with assessing your hormones and all the different factors that come into play, different stressors that suck up your hormones, and how that impacts your digestion, your immune system and your detoxification system, is a term called adrenal fatigue. Now, adrenal fatigue is a term given to tired adrenals, exhausted adrenals. Your adrenal glands are where your body makes its stress hormones. The number one stress hormone is cortisol. So your body keeps getting forced to produce cortisol because of ongoing stress. And it goes through a phase where it produces too much. And then across months and years, the body basically just gets tired of secreting the same amount of hormone to the stressors that keep on going, and it builds up, and it secretes more and more and more. And then in time, it can't produce the same amount. So you go through a phase of too much stress hormone for the stressor to then not enough for that same stressor, or accumulation of stressors. So that kind of too much to too little is a fatigue pattern. You kind of overwork and then you just can't keep going anymore. So what you tend to find is someone will have gone through the overproduction of stress hormone. We're under a lot of stress, but that excessive response, it's quite good. But you do lots of exercise, maybe when you're younger, but not because you are younger you get a larger response, but because this happens more often when you're younger. You may be training, let's say going to the gym twice a day, and that's fantastic. You're working hard and you're also exercising hard, and you get a kick out of that. It doesn't necessarily mean you become addicted, but you quite enjoy training quite hard. You may stop and think at certain points that that's probably too much, training twice a day, working 10 hours, 8 hours, whatever a day, and that's a lot of stress. But because your body's coping and over-producing a response, that's a way of you coping. Now, as that goes on, in months and years, and other stressors come into play, like I was saying about the pollution from your environment, or the poor choice of food, or too much alcohol, or working too long hours, or not enough sleep, or kids getting you up in the middle of the night, or financial pressures, or the fact that 20 years on of having pasta 2 or 3 times a day, but you actually are gluten intolerant, has created enough internal stress and internal damage that you're no longer coping with. That over response moves you, as I said, towards a low response. So you go from what's called stage 1, too much hormones, towards stage 2. And most people come for advice and the coach does the whole thing when they get into that stage 2. But at that point, they're not secreting the same amount of stress response, or sort of the same hormones to that stress. So now they're in stage 2, the body starts to complain. And when the body starts to complain, you probably know that just cutting fat, cutting calories, going on what you may call a good diet, and going to the gym is maybe not enough. You need to look a bit deeper and find out, well, why do I have bloating when I never used to get that anymore? And I'm always shattered in the middle afternoon, am I just doing too much? But what if you actually do make serious lifestyle changes where you get to your bed earlier and you're not having 6, 7, 8 cups of coffee a day, and maybe you've cut back on the cigarettes, and maybe you don't have them at all, and you don't drink as much, and you're now shopping for organic and free range food, so the food's kind of better. You might still have a series of symptoms that indicate your body's not functioning as well. So that's kind of classic adrenal fatigue. So you need to find out what the problems are, what the stressors are, and then you need to support and allow your body to repair itself, so that you're doing more than just exercise and diet. You need to actually identify what the stresses are, whether there are hormonal imbalances, whether your hormone levels are just too low, whether it's digestive stress in terms of how you process food, or not so much how you break it down, but how you absorb it. There's this kind of smart term called leaky gut. It's quite a common problem with people that they're eating a really good diet, but it's coming in, it's going down your throat, it's going into your stomach, and it's just not getting used within the body, which might seem like kind of nonsense or wishful thinking on someone that's looking to do tests to find out stuff that's wrong with you, but in actual fact that really is, it's a diagnosable condition. You could go to your doctor and they could investigate that with different medical lab tests and find out that yes, you have leaky gut, which basically means you can eat all the good food you want, but really it's not getting where it needs to go, it's not passing through the cell wall and getting into your blood supply and getting off around your body. That's actually a response to stress, long-term stress. That can be improved, you can recover that. but you need to know what the cause of it is. What are your stressors? You need to build up your hormones to be able to cope with those stressors as you're removing them, and they need to be repaired to allow you to create X response to Y stressor. Now, after stage 2, you've got stage 3. Now, what happens there is the stress has been unrelenting and excessive, and that's you no longer coping. Your oomph is completely gone, right? So your get up and go is gone. There's someone in that is, they may not have chronic fatigue or conditions related to that, such as ME, fibromyalgia, maybe MS, different neurological conditions come into that low energy, in a sort of a medical sense. But low fatigue is quite common with people who apparently are healthy. They may look healthy, but internally, because they've not been coping with stress, their hormone response has got low enough that there's not much left to give. And you can still be training really hard, working really hard, and without knowing how low your hormones are actually going, what you don't appreciate, there's not much more that you need to give before you've not got it. Now that could be things like you're training hard and you're eating well, but you're in stage 3 adrenal fatigue, the low hormones, and you're involved in a car accident where your recovery is very poor. Maybe the actual mental, emotional stress of that is just taking it right out of you. You thought, oh, you think you're tough, you think you're resilient and quite robust to life stressors, but that's knocked you for 6. Or someone gets serious ill in your family, or there's a death. Some big life stressor comes along and wham, where did that come from? I thought I was a coper. But because you didn't appreciate that all the stress in your life, you hadn't managed it well enough with supporting your body and then identifying the stressors to repair them in time, and it could be a matter of months for some people, it could be 20, 30, 40 years for the next person. You're actually just sitting there almost waiting for some calamity, you're waiting for that extra thing to come along that you just hadn't planned for, but your body hadn't actually planned to cope with, is the better way of looking at it. So if we can identify your stressors, whether they're external or internal, with digestion, immune system, or detoxification and your liver system, if we can find out what they are, we can also, first of all, find out how your hormones are coping, look at all those internal stressors and work our way trying to remove them all, but we'll first start off by supporting and repairing the hormones so that there's less impact on all your stressors, and that's a way to get yourself out of adrenal fatigue, out of even as low levels as what's called stage 3, and build yourself back up towards normal. Whereas I said previously, you get that amount of response, stress hormone, to that level of stressor. That's a way to rebuild function and health.